votes are counted. Well, let's cross now to my colleague Jane O'Brien, who is on Capitol Hill. Jane, over to you.
Thank you, Stephen. And yes, the big question is, will this massive turnout we're seeing translate well for the Democrats or for the Republicans? That is the big question. I'm not going to answer that, but I do have somebody who does have a crystal ball, and that is Mallory Newall, who is from the independent, non-partisan polling firm Ipsos. So, Mallory, the polls say that the Democrats are going to take the House. Are they right?
At Ipsos, I think they are right. We believe that Democrats are poised to retake the House, yes.
How do we know you're right? Because you got it wrong in 2016.
So actually, that's one thing that's interesting. People like to say that pollsters got it wrong in 2016. And what we know is that the popular vote actually was fairly accurate in terms of market averages. However, we are doing things a little bit differently this cycle, and we've learned some important lessons. So what we're doing this time around is making sure that we're not focusing on just one single forecast or method of modeling. And so what we at Ipsos have done is we've brought together our polling data along with expert race rankings from the University of Virginia and social media analytics to kind of bring everything together in one spot so people can form their own conclusions.
But your conclusions are only as good as the data you get. How do you know that voters are telling the truth? Because when I speak to Republicans, a lot of them say, we're not admitting that we support President Trump or we're going to vote Republican.
Right, that's a good question. I think one of the ways that we know that people are more likely to tell us the truth is because Ipsos conducts our polls online, which I do think offers a greater level of anonymity for people to tell the truth.
What about some of those voting blocs, like women? A lot of focus is on women, particularly white independent women. How do you think they're going to vote?
Well, I think that the focus is on white independent women for a good reason. There are a number of key House districts that are suburban districts that are really a toss-up, could go either way at this point. And what we're seeing is that those suburban women are perhaps more likely to vote Democratic than they were in 2016 because they more closely identify with some of the Democratic messages of health care and, frankly, of outrage against President Trump and some of his policies.
And what about the issues? Because President Trump is talking about immigration, but the economy is doing really well. Why isn't he talking about that?
I think the reason that the president is talking about immigration is because it is a good issue for his base. So to be clear, the main issue for this election is really President Trump himself and what he thinks America should stand for. And so on the Democratic side, you have issues like health care and outrage against the president that are driving the base. So what the president is having to do is use things like immigration and a migrant caravan coming toward this country to sort of manufacture outrage among his base to sort of match the same levels of outrage we're seeing on the Democratic side.
And I guess that's the whole point, isn't it? We don't know which is going to motivate which party the most.
Right.
So when are we going to know? I'm in Virginia tomorrow night. The polls close early. Is that going to be a sign?
Well, I think that there are some really key states to watch that have polls closing early. Virginia is certainly one of them, but also Florida and Georgia. Florida, we have a really hotly contested governor's race and a Senate race as well. And in Georgia, we have perhaps one of the closest governor's races yet to watch this cycle. So I think those will be some good indicators on what's going to happen tomorrow night.
Mallory Newall, thank you very much indeed for joining me. And tomorrow night, of course, we'll find out if Mallory is right.